I despise water-based hazers. People are still going to come to Jesus without HAZE. They found no negative respiratory issues with oil-based HAZE at all.
HAZE. Can you talk to us about HAZE, tips and tricks for distribution, your favorite ones to use on a budget, big budget, little budget? What do you think?
I love and hate this topic all at the same time. First off, if you are a church that is not using HAZE, that's completely fine. You know, people are still going to come to Jesus without HAZE. I know that breaks some hearts out there, but it's true. If you are not using HAZE, then moving lights as creative lighting becomes less and less important. When I've been in environments where they say, hey, we cannot use HAZE in here, I focus on color washes and I focus on scenery. It's a different approach, but it works great. Hazers in general. I love HAZE. I want to use it in every church environment. I want it to be done right. I'm a diehard, unapologetic MDG HAZer fan. I'll also be the first to acknowledge they are the most expensive one out there for good reason, because they are absolutely the best. If you don't believe that, you're just wrong. But they're also well out of the budget of a lot of churches out there. The MDG hazers, I've been using them since 2004, so 20 years now. They're a CO2-based hazer, so it uses a combination of haze fluid and CO2 to get the CO2 out in the air. One of the reasons they are the best to me is it has the finest particulate. And I know you may think, why does the size of the particulate? And particulate, I mean the little specks of material that create the haze in the air. It's the smallest, and we're talking microns. You'd be thinking, why does that matter? And the only way I know how to show you is to have two side by side. It's almost, I'd call it high resolution haze. It looks more refined. It looks cleaner in the air. It also clouds a lot less. I get comments from people all the time of like, I turn my hazer on, but it just shoots this big cloud out on stage. Excuse me. And I usually have a couple questions about that. Yeah, there we go. It's one of our posts from this last week. So that's a MDG ATME hazer, ATME. We love those. Got a ton of them in rentals. Great hazers. It uses that CO2 bottle. You don't have to use that external fan with it. We do that as part of our rental packages. You don't have to have the whole case and that thing to go with it. But it's also a very white haze. You may think, well, isn't all haze white? Actually, no. I don't want to talk about brands that I don't like, but there's another CO2-based hazer out there that was about $1,000 cheaper than the MDG that became popular for a while. But the haze looked blue when it came out. It had like a bluish tinge to it, and in certain environments, it almost looked like car exhaust to me. And it would actually change the color of the lighting because of the blue tinge of the haze. There was another one years ago from another manufacturer that was the opposite. It looked dirty. It looked kind of brown. So MDG has that clean white haze. Just accents the lighting real well. Also, one of the biggest issues with using haze in church is the 80-year-old lady on the second row that's going to cough every time she sees it coming out. That means that we really need to make effort to not see the cloud, because that's what triggers people psychologically to cough, is when they see a cloud, and then we naturally believe, oh, there's a cloud of something in the air, I need to cough from it. So if we can make it where they just don't perceive that cloud at all, then we're going to have less negative response from people that don't like haze. Is it going to completely get rid of it? No, absolutely not. But it'll be less. I know this just from experience. So let's talk placement and usage. I just said one of the things we don't ever want to see is the cloud when it comes out. Well, if you are in a completely haze-free room and you turn any hazer on, including an MDG, you're going to see a cloud initially. So in any environment, I want to prime the room before the audience walks into it. So if your service is at 9 a.m., our senior adults would throw a fit if we just, then, hey, maybe shouldn't do it. If your service is at 9 a.m. and the audience starts coming in at 8:30, and it takes 30 minutes to fully haze your room, you need to start hazing at 8 a.m. and not at 8:30, because you want it to already be at the level it's going to be at before the audience walks into the room, because you don't want them to perceive a change. You just want them to come in and go, oh, this is just how it is. You also don't want to see a cloud coming on stage. So often I see people put their hazer right on stage. When they turn it on, you see it blowing out on stage. I put the hazer as far away from the stage as I can get and still get haze onto the stage. At Church on the Move, we actually used 2 MDGs. One was, and the reason we did 2, we didn't need it for the volume. We needed it for the distribution. And what I mean by that is there was a jet stream in the room there. Our room was not quite 40 feet tall. So fairly tall room for a church. And up top, I want to make sure I get this right. Up top, the air moved from stage right to stage left. Down below, it moved from stage left to stage right. So backstage on the third floor, which we had access to the third floor from backstage, I had a hazer backstage right. Then I had another one on the floor, stage left, so that it hazed out and they both just went that way as they went. We would always start priming the room before anybody came in. I use a fan with every single hazer made. I don't care how good it is. It does not need to be a nice fan. It does not need to be a DMX controllable fan like you saw in the picture before. My favorite ones cost $13 at Walmart, and they're made by Honeywell. It's perfect. I turn it on and just leave it on all the time. The reason a fan's important is it breaks up the haze even more when it comes out of the unit. It just distributes it more. And then I don't point that fan on stage. Even if I have a shallow stage, I point that fan into the back wall so the haze just goes back there and dissipates and rolls up and slowly seeps out into the room. I've been in environments where the right place to put the hazer wasn't even on stage. I've done it from front of house catwalks over the audience. There was a period of time where we actually had it. This is hard to explain if you haven't been in Church on the Move's room, but you have, Ryland.
Yeah.
We had it in that second floor production hallway around the back coming out through a window because at the time it just worked better in that environment. So where to put the haze is going to vary in every single room out there. If someone tells you that has never been in your room before, if they tell you, here's where you need to put your hazer, you need to stop listening to anything else they say because they don't know because they've never been in your room, and it's going to change based on the airflow, the size, where the doors are, all of that. So to find that out, you need to experiment with different locations. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think a lot of us that are beginning in the moving lights, maybe that's your next thing, you don't really consider haze that much. I remember I got a Chauvet AM haze and stuck it up in the choir loft and just pointed it right out at people. And I turned it on with 1 minute left on the countdown, and people thought the building was on fire. Like I was like running up to unplug it. I was just like, why did I not test this during the week? I don't know.
Yeah.
But if you do buy moving lights, you need haze. Like for instance, this is the impact that haze can have on your lighting looks. No haze and haze.
That's a great example there.
So it's just, and they're on the same way. It's just bam, bam. You got to have haze if you want your lights to translate on camera.
I love that example. I need to make a version of that to show people. Yeah. To your point there as well. I would, if I've got a restricted budget, and people always ask me, we talked about this a little bit earlier, how should we allocate our budget? The first two things to look at for me are your hazer and the quality of it. Now, I'm not saying every single person out there needs to go out and buy a $6,000 MDG hazer, but I would get the highest quality hazer you feel like you can actually afford. I would rather have more subpar lights and a better hazer than better lights and a worse hazer.
Yeah.
I can take basic lights, entry-level lights, and make them look good with the right haze. You can't do that in reverse if you don't have the right haze. The other part, we're not talking about haze here, but the other part I emphasize first is control. If your people don't have an interface, a control console that they can work with easily and quickly, it doesn't matter how good the lights are on stage. They're not going to be able to get those looks out of them. I was just going to mention the other, Antari, which I'm brand agnostic here on most things. Antari has come out with a CO2-based hazer that is cheaper than the MDG. And is it as good? In my opinion, no. There's a few things that aren't great. However, I would absolutely recommend it from what I've seen from it so far. We demoed it here at the company. We're going to start recommending it for a lot of our clients. I'm probably not going to buy any for our rental inventory just because we already have the MDGs. And I have not, I've only demoed one for a day or two, so I got to put that caveat behind it. But it looks like it does provide another option for a lower cost CO2-based hazer that gets you a lot of the same things the MDG does. Not quite all, but a lot.
What are your thoughts on oil-based, like the DF50? Do you ever recommend that for churches? The Z350, came out.
So glad you said that because I missed that. That's one of the things I wanted to point out. MDGs and the Antari, I think it's called a CH2 that I'm talking about, are oil-based hazers.
Oh.
Yeah, and this is something a lot of people don't understand. I despise water-based hazers. I've never seen one that works well. They came out as a let me back up. Oil-based hazers are not bad for you or your respiratory system in any way whatsoever. I'm gonna not actually name names because I'd butcher if I get it right, but I want to say it was whatever union represents Broadway performers did a huge study. I don't know the exact cost, but that spent tons of money doing a study on HAZE, because when you have someone with a voice that's insured for millions of dollars in an environment like that, you're not going to let that get affected by something like HAZE if it's not right. They found no negative respiratory issues with oil-based HAZE at all. Now, does that mean that HAZE never actually affects someone? No, that's not true. We're all humans. All our bodies are different. Some people are going to have existing respiratory issues that could potentially be triggered by HAZE. So I'm not saying that the lady that says that HAZE makes her cough is lying, but there is no issue with oil-based HAZE that I've ever heard about within my 30 years of doing this. You mentioned DF50 specifically. There are different types of oil-based HAZE. We talked about the NBGs and the Antares, or the Antares CH2. I think I'm saying that model right. Excuse me if I'm wrong. They do use oil, but it's a different process than, say, a DF50 uses. DF50 is called a cracked oil hazer, and what it actually uses is mineral oil. You don't have to buy DF50 fluid. You can go Walgreens and buy mineral oil and pour it in your DF50, and it works great. I used to buy it in bulk by the jug at COTM when we still had one in our kids' room, because I think DF50 fluid cost me $50 a gallon. Mineral oil cost me $15 a gallon. So I just bought unscented mineral oil, and it worked great for it.
Wow.
That hazer's still working today. That was 15 years ago. I do not recommend DF50s for HAZE at churches at all, ever, under any circumstances. DF50s are one of the all-time best hazers out there. I kind of actually wished I owned a couple here at the company. I might need to buy them. They are tanks. They are indestructible. You want to do a concert, and they are awesome. But because it's that cracked oil, it does not dissipate the same way an MDG or a CO2-based hazer does. So your keyboardist is going to feel it on his keyboards.
Yeah.
If you have unsealed optics in your projectors, it's going to creep in there and start blurring the optics on your projectors or your cameras. It is going to get into everything and on everything because it doesn't evaporate the same way. With a CO2-based hazer, you might get a little bit of residue in like a 3-foot radius around the hazer, but you're not going to feel it anywhere beyond that. So love oil-based hazers. I think it's what everybody should use. If you have a problem in your room where it feels like you have a layer of haze, I know a lot of people have experienced this before where it's almost like the haze stops right here and doesn't distribute well through the room. It's because you're using a water-based hazer. Water-based hazers are too susceptible to environmental changes. Barometric pressure, temperature, humidity in the room is going to change the way the haze works, and we just can't get reliable results from them for any that I've ever seen. So somebody out there right now is going, no, I got one that works great. Cool, send it to me. I want to learn.
Yeah. We use Ultratech Radiance here. It's all right. Yeah. It's not going to be anything like a CO2, but it's fine for the price. It's like $600-700 or something. But yeah, that's dude. You could do a masterclass around HAZE.
Dude, it's one of my favorite topics. Yeah.